Good afternoon, YouTube fans. This is Matt of Post April 6th YouTube channel. Look at this photograph. Yeah, that's Shirley MacLaine when she was young in about 1955 in the movie Trouble with Harry. And there he is, Jerry Mathers. That was the first movie he was in. That's when he was just a little whippersnapper. Yeah. Jerry Mathers as the Beaver. Well, I'm going to do some dishwashing. And then I am going to do some cooking. And then I'm going to shower and shave. And then after that, I'm going to do more of a YouTube vlog. Now, what is in the YouTube vlog and what I will be talking about, to be honest, I haven't decided yet. But I got lots of ideas. Sooner or later, I'll make a decision on what to talk about. And I think it's going to be pretty interesting. So stay tuned. There is going to be more. Well, even though it has been quite a few hours since I did the introduction, I'm back. And I've been thinking on and off about this all day about what to do. So what I will do, after thinking quite a bit about this, I've been thinking, hold on a sec. I've been thinking at least 9 hours about this. In fact, it may be as long as 11 hours. Yeah. And about an hour ago, well, actually, let me correct that. About a half hour ago, roughly, 20 minutes to a half hour ago, I finally made a decision on what this vlog is going to be about. And I am going to discuss another unfinished story idea. Now, in this vlog, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the best I can to complete it. Yes. What is typed up here is a story about a man named Boyd Alexander Altman. He was born on July 2nd, 1976 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And the ancestry of, we'll call him Mr. Altman for the time being until we go back to his full name. Or Boyd. Yeah, let's call him Boyd instead of it just by his last name. Boyd's last name, Altman. I just did a AI microphone search, saying the name, and then they brought up the information. The last name Altman is of either Jewish or German ancestry, or German and Jewish ancestry, which means exactly the same thing. Or it could be someone who's half German and half Jewish. Or it could be someone who is strictly German, or someone who is mostly Jewish, meaning by at least 80% family ancestry and background, ethnic backgrounds. So, his last name is really not the point of the story. So why don't I go ahead and start reading what I've already typed up, and then I'll go from there. And after what I say about what goes on in his life, after I am done reading what I've already typed up, it's going to get more and more interesting, believe me. You're really going to like this. Okay. Boyd Alexander Altman was born on July 2nd, 1976 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and was the son of 29-year-old Gregory Joseph Altman, a supervisory librarian. Now, what that means is he was a manager. He wasn't the head librarian, but he was probably, if he wasn't a supervisor, he was possibly an assistant manager for the public libraries, not a private library. So, okay, I'll get back to the reading. And his mother, Mary Jo Dexter, because Dexter's her maiden name, Altman, a 27-year-old female, who was a teacher's aide to a middle school in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Boyd spent his childhood and part of his adulthood in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Or no, just, let me say that again. I just said Philadelphia. Ugh. So let me say that sentence all over again, so that people, so I'm making it clear what that means. And part of his adulthood in Philadelphia until he was 23 years old. And then on August 4th, 1999, he had only $433 to his name and about 9 days worth of clothing and a COMPAQ 400 megabyte laptop, meaning that the laptop had a 400 megabyte hard drive. That was a 1990 issue computer, or I'm sorry, laptop, and 2 pairs of shoes, and he took a one-way ticket via A.T.A. Airlines from Philadelphia International Airport to Los Angeles International Airport to live with a friend whom lived in a single-family home located near Universal City, Los Angeles, so that Boyd could start working at Universal Studios as an all-purpose associate and work in various job positions and help Universal Studios be more efficiently ran entertainment corporation. Okay, so here's what happens. Let's forget about his childhood. Let's concentrate on what happens after August 2nd, 1999 and until about 2016. His friend, we'll call him Teddy, because the full name would be Theodore. So we'll call him Theo, or in fact, we'll call him Theo instead of Teddy. Theo picked him up at the airport, and Theo was married, and he had a really good wife named Aubrey, like the song that was written by Bread, the soft rock band. Because one of their songs was Aubrey. He had a wife named Aubrey, and they didn't have any children. And Theo was a guy who didn't work with actors per se, but he worked in the entertainment industry. He didn't work for Universal Studios, but what he would do would be to do some background checks on actors and producers and directors, and everything he did he had to keep confidential. He couldn't go around talking about it. That's a big no-no in the state of California. That's a big no-no. So he picks him up at the airport, they go home, and Theo goes into the kitchen and extracts some leftover Chinese food. I think what it would be, or no, actually it wouldn't be Chinese food, Asian food, because it would be pad thai. And it would be pad thai with some veggie rolls. Or spring rolls, sorry, spring rolls. And he warmed them up in the microwave, and he made some very good, I'm talking about Theo. Theo made some really good, from an espresso machine, coffee that was it was kind of dark and it was strong, but you put the right coffee creamer and the right sweeteners in there, and you could make it taste like, you could still make it taste like the most delicious cup of coffee you ever had. And I bet you that coffee, for just a 16-ounce thing, it's probably over $25. And what brand name that would be? Well, it was Costa Rican coffee from Costa Rica. And what manufacturing company would be? I better not say on this YouTube vlog. But it was high dollar. It was good stuff. It was very good stuff. Very well processed. And then what happened was Theo goes into his, or excuse me, Boyd goes into his into the spare bedroom he's staying in. He does a little bit of unpacking. He gets out his laptop, and the two men sit in the living room area, and what he does is, even though he's got a Yahoo email address, he wants to get familiarized with the internet service providers so that he can get a real good internet connection. And I think what happened was, for the time being, was, and I think it would be available even back then, but maybe not. It would be a Wi-Fi connection, because I think his computer was Wi-Fi compatible. No, I take that back. It wouldn't be Wi-Fi compatible, but he had a Cat 5 cable, and so he just used the provider that was provided by that Theo was using. And he looked at some emails, and he looked up a few things, and then they watched a movie that came out in, I don't remember verbatim when this came out, but I think it was 1996. It was called The Rock. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure Sean Connery was in that movie, but I don't know that for sure. It was The Rock. In fact, I'm gonna verify that, and then I'll be back. Okay, I did a little bit of checking, and it was starring Sean Connery, as I originally, through Sixth Sense, anticipated. And it also had Nicolas Cage. Yes, Nicolas Cage. Now, I personally have not seen that movie. I have an interest in seeing it eventually, but I haven't gotten around to finding the movie through Amazon Prime Video or through the public library or whatever. Because, I mean, if I want to see that movie, I just want to see it for free, just one time to see what it's like. I'm not going to spend anywhere from $6 to $20 on DVD because that's careless. I'm not going to do that. Okay, so back to the story. They watched The Rock, and then I think a little after 6:30 p.m., somewhere between 6:30 and 7 p.m., the wife comes home from work. Because what she was doing what she was doing for a living, I should say, was she was a supervisor at Fry's Electronics. Yes, Fry's Electronics, F-R-Y-S. And then Aubrey was really nice to Boyd, and she gave him a hug, and she was really nice to him, and offered to do anything she could to help him out. And then what happened was Aubrey took care of a few things upstairs, paid a few bills, and checked her email. And then at about 7:30 approximately, I believe they went out for dinner. And where they went, if it wasn't Outback Steakhouse, it was the same type of really, really delicious steakhouse. And between the three of them, all three of them racked up probably at least $55 at the steakhouse. Yep. In fact, I take that. In fact, I after I think about that, I'm going to make a correction on that one. It's more like $68 because all three of them had a couple of alcohol beverages. Yeah. Boyd had one martini, Aubrey had one glass of wine, and Theo had a margarita. Yeah. And then they come home and they watch a little more TV. They just keep flipping through the channels, and then they go to sleep. Then all three of them go to sleep a little after 11 o'clock. And there's a nice, gentle knocking on the door, and she says, Aubrey goes, "Yoo-hoo! Boyd, are you awake?" And he says, "Hold on," and then he cracks open the door and says, "Yes." She says, "I'm about to make breakfast. Do you want scrambled eggs or do you want French toast?" And he says, "Either one's fine." She says, "You know what, I'll make both." So he goes in, takes a shower, relieves himself, shaves, brushes his teeth after showering, and he comes into this dining room that is right next to the kitchen, and they all three of them really put it away because it is Theo's day off and Aubrey's. And then what they do is they get in his, because they have two different cars. They get into the bigger of two cars, which would probably be a Land Rover, and they drive around a good portion of that part of L.A. And believe me, they do a whole hell of a lot of driving. And there's periods where, for about a half hour, they're in a major traffic jam, and they're just moving like this. And then 5-6 minutes later, they move like this. They don't just go. They just go like this. And that goes on for a half hour until the traffic really lets up. And they eat a couple of different times. And then they come back home after being out of the house for, oh, probably at least 8-9 hours. Yeah. And they come home, I'm trying to think here. They come home at about 6:30 at night. And this was 1999, and this was before Grubhub, DoorDash, and Uber Eats and Postmate. There's probably some type of restaurant delivery service. It would probably be named something like L.A. Cali food runners, restaurant runners, or special delivery services. And they get 3 different orders of cheeseburgers. You know, they call the phone number and get the whole thing set up. And at about 7:15, 7:20 roughly, there's a knock on the door, and there's not one of those old-fashioned little things where it's about this big, where you go and you swipe a credit card or a debit card. She hands cold hard cash to the driver, or to the delivery driver. It was the total of the food plus delivery charge plus a tip. And they come in and they pop all 3 of them in the microwave a little quick because it's a little cold, and they all just sit around in the living room and they chomp away. And then the next day after that, his alarm clock goes off at 7 a.m. sharp, and he gets up and he goes to he gets a taxi ride, because this is before Uber and Lyft. He gets a taxi ride to work. And he starts going through orientation. And believe me, when orientation was going through, because he showed up at about 8 a.m., 8:05. Actually, he showed up at 8:15, and he was supposed to clock, officially be ready at 8:30. And instead of 8:05. And orientation goes with a lunch break a 45-minute lunch break at 12:30. So there's lunch between 12:30 and 1:15. Then they get back in there. They get back into the big conference room, and they just keep going through more and more orientation. And this orientation process, it's not just one day. It goes on for 3 days in a row. Then he gets a day off, and then he comes back, and this goes on for 8 days, 8 different shifts, 8 working days. And then on the day that he's supposed to report to actually go into work, what they do is they start him out in the call center, taking calls. And then on the next day after that, he goes to the I don't know exactly verbatim where this would be, but it's in the Universal Studios. It's in one of those areas that where there's a bit of an office building. He goes into the office building, and he starts. He touches base with an executive, and he gets taught on how to send out a whole bunch of invoices. You know, it's with the billing and the accounting department, and he makes a few phone calls to remind people. It's not outright a debt collection call, but it's a reminder. So it's about this close to a debt collection call. And then on the next day after that, he goes with a training crew, and they get shown all over the place. I mean, if it's not literally like this, but it's more like, you know, they're just going through a big maze of buildings, and you know they get to shake hands with a few actors. What the actors' names are, I better not say. And then on the fourth day, he goes to one of the restaurants where, you know, it's a family type restaurant where there's all American food, comfort food. And in that place, they don't just have him be a server. They have him help out with food prep. He's a cashier for like a half hour to an hour. You know, he alternates between food server, cashier, food prep, cleaning the restrooms. And then what happens is after he's been working 6 hours, they show him that they get four of those styrofoam containers that are stacked up at about, you know, this high. There's like four of them. They show him where the go-kart is, or the golf cart is, and they give and it's all typed up on a computer where to go to deliver these entrees. Yeah. And on one of them, he goes to a movie producer who's working in a little cottage-like place that's actually an executive office building. And he chats with the guy. And the guy reaches into his wallet. It's one of those large wallets. It's like the size of a checkbook. And he hands him two $20 bills as a tip. And Boyd is so thankful. He wants to hug the guy, but he makes sure to just like back up a little bit. Like he's thinking to himself, whoa, don't touch this guy in a way that's inappropriate, or there's hell to pay. And he thanked him, and then he was very diplomatic and graceful, and then he goes back to the restaurant, and his face is all red because he's like blushing. And the manager asked him, he says, "Were you tipped?" And he said, "Yes, I was." And she says, "How much?" And he shows it. And he says, "Okay, I'll be right back. Give me the $20 bill." And she comes back and she gives him back $5 and $5.35. It says, okay, now what's happening here is I have to withhold that for tax purposes and a service charge that we're charged. And I'm going to have you fill out a little form. It's one of those little forms that's about this big. In fact, hold on a second. It's a little form that's a little bit bigger than this pocket-sized notepad. Yep. And then what happens is he goes into the office, and he's not chewed out. He's just getting a review on things, and they point out. I mean, he did a pretty good job for being new, but they pointed out a few little things. But other than that, they were more than fair with him. And then they say to him, okay, you're done for the day. Go ahead and go to the part of this proper company that you're supposed to go to clock out, and then you can go home. And then he starts to walk out, and he goes, oh, wait, I almost forgot something. He says, are you hungry? And then he says, yeah, how'd you know? He says, no, I didn't know, I just guessed. And then he says, then Boyd says, okay, I'm hungry. What do you think? What would you like to do, or what will you be doing for me? He says, good. He says, that's a good statement. He says, clock out and come back here. Anything you want that would be under $15 is free. And so he goes and he clocks out, and he comes back, and he gets a patty melt with a little side salad, which is a salad with lettuce, those itty bitty little tomatoes. I think they call them cherry tomatoes or grape tomatoes. A little bit of purple cabbage or red cabbage, and cheese and ranch dressing. And he gets to drink a cup of some really good espresso that is one of the best he ever had. And then after the hold on a second. Okay, so on the 5th day, after I carefully did some research, he goes into the Quick E-Mart, and I remember I don't have a real clear memory, but and this statement's may or may not make much sense. I have a little better than a vague memory of what it looked like because of when I was there in 2009, late April, early May, part of the year 2009, when I went out there for 3 days because I got such a good deal on flight plus hotel. It's called Quick E-Mart. And I'm pretty sure what Quick E-Mart is stuff for The Simpsons cartoon TV series. And he's a cashier there. And he also does a few little things to keep the place straightened up, which in the grocery store I work for, they call it conditioning. In a lot of other retail stores, it would be called facing, pulling things forward, making sure everything's really straightened up and looks nice and presentable. And they would also call it reshop, and they would also call it straightening of merchandise. So I think they would most likely, meaning Universal Studios, would call that conditioning and cleanliness. And he makes sure to straighten up this, that. When all the little Bart Simpson characters are that area is sloppy, he straightens it all out. and he takes out one of those low shag or low low thickness carpeting, and he goes and cleans it up. So that the quick E-Mart is very presentable and looks really appealing to the buyer. And he does that from about roughly about 8:30 until about 5 o'clock, or no, 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock. Yeah, 4 o'clock. Because the reason I say 4 o'clock is I just remembered. I think they want people to leave after 4 o'clock or 4:30. Then he goes home, and he on his days off, he starts with a little financial assistance from Theo. He starts looking into getting a down payment on a car, because the taxi stuff can be a little unpredictable. I mean, he showed up for work about 10 minutes late one day. I mean, he didn't have any disciplinary action taken against him for it. They were understanding, but they just said, try not to do that again. And he gets with Theo, with getting some money, about $400 from Theo, he gets a down payment on a car. And he is able to get a nice Mazda. I think it would be what would be called a Mazda 3 or a Mazda 4 or a Mazda 5. A smaller car, not one of those larger ones. And he lives at the house, the single-family home where Theo and Aubrey live, for about a little more than 30 days, and by then he's got some big bucks racked up. He gets approved for a studio apartment that would probably, this is the best guess I can make, that would probably be no more than 2 to 2.6 miles away from the Universal Studios / Universal Walk area of Los Angeles. And he has 2 days off in a row. And then what he does is he comes in and he checks with the coordinators. And what they have him do is they start training him on how to do the I think they call that a tram. The tram bus or the tramway vehicles, where there's, it's larger than this. That thing is huge. And they have him for like a week solid. They have him driving around over and over for the backlot tour, and he learns how to be really entertaining and just appealing to all the customers. He's quite a guy. He really does good. In fact, he does that for several months. And after New Year's Day of 2000, he has 3 paid days off in a row. New Year's Day, January 2nd, January 3rd. And then he starts helping, he starts getting trained on how to help out with moving prop department. And then he helps out doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that in the soundstage buildings. And I think the other thing that he does is they train him on how to drive from, I think it's near the MTA subway buses, drive from the stop near there into Universal Studios. Now, how close it is to MTA subway system, and how close it is, and how close it is to the entrance, I honestly don't remember. I honestly don't remember. I know that it's close from one end to the other. Because once you get there, you have to go up a really long escalator to get into the into Universal Studios itself. Yeah. And that, and he, for several months, he helps out with mailers to be sent all over the world. You know, people who want to get more information about how to, you know, what is at Universal Studios itself. You know, part of the Universal Studios theme park tour. You know, the stuff that all the people can see when they pay the admission fee to get in. And this goes on between a little after 2000 to 2016. In 2016, he likes the job, but he's tired of it because it's just more and more of the same. He wants to do something else. He wants to be acting in movies. And he establishes a rapport, or a relationship, I should say, with SAG, Screen Actors Guild. I think actually nowadays it's called SAG AFTRA, or AFTRA, something like that. And he saves up enough money to go to an acting school. I think it was called, it's still available, but Sam Christensen's not a part of it anymore. I think one of his relatives run it, because Sam Christensen is deceased. He passed away a few years ago. And he pays about $300 to get in on the acting school. And I tell you, 2016 was the most I had to pause and think about the best statement. 2016 is more than just a major defining moment. It's a huge accomplishment after he goes to the acting school. He gets in on a lot of stuff. And I mean a lot. Now his name isn't one of the first names that is mentioned when they start doing the credits and the intro of the movie and the cast, you know, when they roll the credits at the end. But he's in there. And he goes by the names B. Alexander Altman, or Boyd Altman, or Boyd Alexander Altman. Yep. And he plays all kinds of characters. I mean, he gets into a gorilla-like outfit, and he acts like a really psychotic drug dealer. He's like, you know, doing stuff like that with a guy who's like really whacked out on crystal meth or PCP, or you know, if they're not on the drugs, they get into those types of antics because they become so psychologically disturbed. And he walks around looking like a hippie that's all messed up, and he's all, you know, as he's walking along trying to be some really happen, really cool dude. And he does stuff like this where he's dressed up like an old man. He goes like this. Cause see, I don't like to say this about elderly people. I really don't. But if they've suffered a stroke, they're going to drink a cup of coffee about like this. It's because this hand is like this. It's almost limp. Yes. And part of their face is going to be like, because of the how bad the stroke was, you know, ischemic stroke. And let me say a little personal note about myself. I personally had a form of stroke called hemorrhagic. Hemorrhagic stroke is actually, the other name for it is cerebral brain hemorrhage. Yep. Now, I know I have displayed this type of thing before in other YouTube vlogs. But here, look at this. That's how well I could snap my fingers with this. This is my right hand. Now let's try my left. I can't do it quite as well. I can't move it as fast. And if I do it, it's like this. See? There's not that much noise. There's not much of that sound. And the other thing was when I lived with my father in his house in Pueblo, you know, this is right after I got out of the hospital, my legs would buckle, and he would personally just put his hand out to, you know, to kind of, not outright catch me, but give me a little bit of guidance so I don't fall down. Yeah. And the other thing is I'd be walking down the street, instead of my hands resting on my hips about like this, one hand would be like this, and the other hand would be about like that. Or one hand would be like this, and the other hand would be about like that, or like that. Yeah. Funny. And the other thing that would happen is I would pick something up like this, and I'd drop it. Well, I don't want to hurt this thing. But yeah, okay, so I pick it up about like this, and all of a sudden I drop it like that. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure I didn't have a stain on my comforter on my bed, my bed, and the other thing I use as sort of a couch sitting area. Okay, so back to Boyd. The other type of acting he would do is he'd have a patch over his eye, and he'd have one of those really long beards, and he'd have some makeup to kind of change the looks of his face, and he'd be just all walking down the street like. And he'd have a distinct Panama hat, and he'd be just all walking down the street. And the other thing he would do is he would be not blatantly behind the scenes, but he'd be the type of actor that would be a little further back in the background. You know, it would be a boyfriend and a girlfriend who are doing shopping, and there'd be this guy dressed up like a typical assistant manager or supervisor who's going around the whole store using a special little computer-like device to check the inventory on things, and then you go, and then he just goes, puts it in the cart, and it just keeps going along, and then he checks something else out, and then he'd take out his little notepad and he'd write something down, and then it would just be like, and then he'd just keep going around doing, you know, he's at least 5 feet back and barely within the eye level of what the movie viewers are going to be able to see. And the other thing that he would do is he would go see movies that he starred in, and other movies that he didn't star in, as part of a I guess what you would call a ritual, or a appreciated gesture. You know, you go see it for free because he get a special little thing because he's with SAG, and then he would turn in a special report on what he thought about the movie. Yeah. Well, I think that's about it. I hope all of you liked seeing this vlog, and thank you everyone for watching this. And again, like I've said before, I hope this is interesting. I did the best I could, and I hope to have more subscribers in the future. And I hope everybody has a good day, a good evening, and a happy week, a happy life. Thank you, and goodbye. Hope to see you again.